international invitees. And so I'd like to start by saying, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, it gives me great pleasure to thank the organizers of this meeting for assembling such a magnificent group of people, and for your organization, the trouble you've taken us to make us welcome. As a previous visitor to this country, I'm no stranger to the great tradition of Sudanese hospitality, so this is a wonderful event for all of us. The journey to finding a solution to mycetoma has been a very long one. We don't really know when this race started, and I think of it rather like a slightly disjointed relay race, where one person takes a baton and then hands it on to another. Sometimes they drop it, sometimes they give it to several people, but the race goes on. We know that it was recognized in the ancient Indian writings as a condition that they described as foot anthill, which is a wonderful description of this mound of skin, swollen skin, with little black dots coming out of it. But the scientific history starts with a German physician. And like many scientific stories, it started by accident because he was working with the Dutch East India Company, and the Dutch fleet was badly damaged in a storm off the coast of southern India. And so they put in to land to repair. And like many physicians at the time, he wandered around the country talking to people. He described the local plants and animals and the local diseases. And one of them was a disease that he called paracal. And if you find his thesis in the University of Leiden Library, there he describes mycetoma. But alas, at this stage, the race faltered, and someone dropped the baton and didn't pick it up. People forgot about mycetoma for over 200 years. So he started in 1694. The next publication was in the 1840s by a dispensary physician in southern India who described the disease, and then his colleagues followed. They described its manifestations. One of them identified that fungus might be involved in it. And many distinguished Indian physicians and surgeons joined in. But then again, the story went quiet until there was a renaissance in medical mycology, and a group of people from Mexico, like González Ochoa, from France, the wonderful French trio of Drouet, Segretin and Maria, with their colleagues in West Africa, again took up the baton and raced. Sudan has a very special part in this history because in the 1950s, a man called Peter Abbott described Sudan's problem with mycetoma. He described over 1,000 cases. And clearly here was an area where, if there was a secret to be found, it was here. The baton was taken up by a young microbiologist. He's now not quite so young, and he's sitting 2 places away from me. But Professor Al-Sheikh Majoub and his colleagues in microbiology, like Samir Gumar, began to gather the data together to make a coherent story, and they did new work. They found animal models, they began to work on serology, and everything looked wonderful. And then there was one of those hiatuses again, and this time it was probably because of medical events. The world faced the HIV epidemic. We began to play with transplantation techniques, and those interested in fungi became diverted and looked at other things, although there were some in the audience who persisted working on mycetoma. And then luckily the baton was seized again by another Sudanese, Ahmed Fahal. And as we've seen, he's also transformed this scene by turning the Mycetoma Research Center into a wonderful institution by developing collaborations with people around the world, starting in particular with our colleagues from the Netherlands. So Holland enters the story again with Wendy van der Sande and Ed Zylstra and many others. And by making sure that these collaborations existed, that there was projects going on between these areas, mycetoma research began to flourish again. And what else happened is that some of the most important agencies in the world, like the World Health Organization, came to help. And for that, those of us interested are profoundly grateful. DNDi came in, and other. So This sixth meeting is at a critical point in the story of mycetoma. We have this group of people from all around the world representing all disciplines. In the audience, there are medics, there are epidemiologists, there are scientists, biochemists, social scientists, economists. But we all perceive that this is something that we may be able to help with. So this is an opportunity to seize. So I'd like to end by quoting from another great man from this continent who said, when the water starts boiling, it is foolish to turn off the heat. So over the next 2 days, let's just turn it up.